everyone. Thanks a lot for taking the time on a Saturday evening to join us for this, 60 minutes webinar session on getting started with Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. So let's get started. So about the speaker, so myself, my name is Vignesh Ganeshan. I've been in the industry for almost close to 13 plus years now. I'm a Microsoft MVP and also an MCT. So in my current role, I work as an enterprise architect and technology strategist, where I focus morely on, taking care of the modern workplace ecosystem for the entire organization. So that's what I focus on. Let me hand it over to Samik to introduce himself. Samik, over to you.
Thank you, Vignesh, and myself, Sumik, and I'm another MVP in security area in India, and I'm an MCT and author as well. And I help customers to build security products and help customer to streamline their security. With that, over to you, Vignesh.
All right, thank you. All right, folks. So, before we even get started, I see a lot of new faces here. So if some of you are new to this webinar series, or, I just wanted to make sure that I'm setting the right expectation here. And if some of you have already seen the previous session recordings, you would know what is the expectation to be a part of this webinar series. But any which ways, let me go ahead and, lay it out for that there for you. So the targeted audiences for this webinar series are either Microsoft 365 admins or architects, or you could be somebody who's coming from an Azure background wherein you're working as a cloud engineer or a solutions architect or a technical architect, or maybe you're even an IT security professional where you take care of all the security related stuff in your organization. But then the basic understanding we expect from you is you should have a good understanding on Microsoft 365 and Azure services, because this webinar in itself is not designed to talk about the basics of Microsoft 365 or Azure. We are going to make an assumption that you have the basic understanding, because this entire webinar series is targeted on the Microsoft Defender XDR, which is a security layer that's going to take care of all the M365 workloads. So the end goal is to make sure that you get yourself familiarized with all the Microsoft Defender XDR products, implementation methods, licensing, and some best practices. So if at all you're wondering, what is Microsoft Defender XDR? This very product stack was called as Microsoft 365 Defender before. And with all these new naming changes which Microsoft keeps doing, so Microsoft 365 Defender is now called as Microsoft Defender XDR. So key takeaways. So we hope that at the end of this webinar series, you walk away with a good understanding about Microsoft Defender XDR and the different products and services in the suite. You also get to understand why Defender XDR is important for an organization which has a good cloud footprint. And also what problem can Microsoft Defender XDR solve for you, and how it can integrate with both native Microsoft products and also non-native Microsoft products and solutions. So this is, I want to make sure that I'm setting the right expectation out there, and so that you know what you're signing up for. Yeah. So how do we plan to run this webinar series, right? So this is, I think this is the sixth session on this webinar series. So the very first two sessions were dedicated to the introductory stuff. So once again, if you haven't seen that, I would highly encourage that you go to the YouTube channel. So we've kept all the recordings there so that you can go through all of that, right? And we are planning to do at least 12 to 15 sessions in this webinar series, wherein we are planning to dedicate at least 3 sessions per product in the Microsoft Defender XDR suite, right? So um, our expectation is 12 to 15, but we might even go past that, right? So, but just bear in mind that we are trying to cover as much as possible in this webinar series. So these would be bi-weekly sessions on Saturdays at 6 p.m. IST. So these sessions are going to be recorded, and this will be shared on my YouTube channel, which you can consume later. So each session is planned to run for 60 minutes, wherein 50 minutes would be for the session in itself. And the last 10 minutes would be more for Q&A, or if you have any other doubts that you want to talk about, we can dedicate the time to that. And at the end of the session, we'll be sharing a Microsoft form, which we want you to scan to give the feedback. And also there is an option there for you to ask questions. Maybe you didn't get a chance to ask the question now, or maybe you are going through this recording at a later point and something popped up in your mind. Maybe you came up with a question and you want to ask those questions. You can put that question in that feedback form, and we will address that in the upcoming sessions. Okay. So today we have a crisp agenda, as I said. So we want to focus on Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. So the previous sessions focused on getting started with Microsoft Defender XDR, and we did about 3 to 4 sessions, which was dedicated to Microsoft Defender for Office 365. So the next product that we want to focus is Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. So we'll be beginning by talking about a generic overview of what Microsoft Defender for Endpoint is. What are the different plans that we have for Microsoft Defender for Endpoint? What are the capabilities that you get with the plan 1 and plan 2? Today we want to deep dive into MDE plan 1 capabilities. But then we won't be focusing on attack surface reduction today. When I say attack surface reduction, that is a capability on MDE plan 1, because we want to dedicate a complete session just for that. So the next session will be completely dedicated to attack surface reduction, which is part of MDE plan 1. But today we'll try to focus on all the other remaining capabilities that you get as a part of your MDE plan 1. And then I'll also be sharing some useful links. And as I said, we'll spend some time for the Q&A and also to have a chat to talk about your doubts, anything else that you want to talk about related to Defender for Endpoint or even Defender for XDR for that matter. Microsoft Defender XDR. So as I've said this before, and this is a slide which I keep showing in every single session of in this webinar series, right? So Microsoft Defender XDR is nothing but this a unified XDR suite which brings together multiple products underneath it, right? You got the Defender for Endpoint, you got the Defender for Office 365, you got the Defender for Identity, then you also get the Defender for Cloud Apps. So all these things are integrated, they're closely connected with each other, and they form this one single suite of product called as Microsoft Defender XDR. Right. So similar to any other XDR product out there in the market, this is going to offer you these 4 core capabilities, which is protect, detect, and also automate and respond, right? And also have extend capabilities also. So the way Microsoft has designed this product is pretty much any plan 1. If you look at Defender for Office 365 plan 1, or if you look at Defender for Endpoint plan 1, or if you look at Defender for Cloud Apps, right? The plan 1 is mostly dedicated towards protect and detect. The plan 2 is more around automate, investigate, right? So if you're looking only to protect and detect, then plan 1 is the go-to plan for you, right? But if you want to do more, you want to do automation and you want to do automated response and a lot of those things, right? So then the plan 2 is something that you need to go after. So when I say plan 2, you get the capabilities of plan 1 also, and in addition, you get the capabilities that comes with plan 2. And we'll talk in detail about this as we move further, right? And so what is this meant to take care of? Of course, all the hybrid identities. It's just not only the cloud identities, it can also take care of the on-prem identities. Then endpoints, because today we'll be focusing on the endpoint stuff. Then the email and collaboration, which is part of your Microsoft 365 ecosystem. Then all the SaaS apps. When I say SaaS apps, it's just not the Microsoft 365 apps, but also the other SaaS apps in your organization, right? And the data that gets stored in all these SaaS apps, as well as the cloud workloads. So all these things can be secured and governed using Microsoft Defender XDR, right? So each product is meant to take care of one single solution here. That if you look at hybrid identities, it's Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, which is going to take care of this. If you look at endpoints and IoT, it is Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, which is meant to take care of this, right? Email and collaboration, it's Microsoft Defender for Office 365. When I say SaaS apps, it's Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps. When I say data, once again, data could be residing in your email and collab, or it could be data which is residing on the SaaS apps, right? And also the additional cloud workloads also. As I said in the beginning, this is not something which is only meant to secure and count your Microsoft 365 cloud footprints alone. You could be somebody who's using Google Cloud, right? Or you could be using Amazon. So Defender XDR is capable enough of taking care of securing, your to secure all the workloads that you have in those, on those cloud stuff. Also, it could be AWS or Google. They can take care of that as well. All right. So Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, right? So pretty straightforward, as I was saying before. Defender for Endpoint, it's as simple as possible. It's an enterprise endpoint security platform which is designed to help enterprise networks prevent, detect, investigate, and respond to advanced threats. It simply means that it is a product which is meant to take care of all the endpoints in your environment, right? When I say endpoints, most of the time people tend to think that endpoint means only your workstations and mobile devices. It's just not that. An endpoint could be even your access points, routers, firewalls, right? So the list keeps going big. So Microsoft Defender for Endpoint can take care of all these endpoints, right? It could be your laptops, phones, tablets, PCs, access points, routers, firewalls. It can take care of pretty much anything. And here's a good diagram which talks about the different capabilities which Microsoft Defender for Endpoint can offer, right? I would rather play a quick video on this instead of me going and talking in detail about each and every single capability here. So let me just quickly go ahead and play that video so that you can make sense out of what all these different options mean here. For that, let me get a screen here. Okay, so here it comes.
This video summarizes the Microsoft Defender for Endpoint platform so you can better understand its components and capabilities. Defender for Endpoint is a comprehensive solution for preventing, protecting from, detecting, and automating the investigation of and response to threats on endpoints. It's a core part of Microsoft 365 Defender, which combines and orchestrates the capabilities of Defender for Endpoint, Defender for Office 365, Defender for Identity, and Defender for Cloud Apps. Several components define Defender for Endpoint. This video describes each, starting with asset discovery. Attackers are more likely to compromise unmanaged devices, and by doing so, threaten your network. So Defender for Endpoint helps you to discover these network devices and endpoints so you can assess and protect them. It requires no extra appliances or cumbersome process changes. Instead, Defender for Endpoint uses already onboarded endpoints to collect, probe, or scan your network to discover unmanaged devices. After discovering these unmanaged devices, Defender for Endpoint helps you to assess their vulnerability and onboard them. Asset discovery is part of threat and vulnerability management, a game-changing bridge between IT and security teams. It's a risk-based approach to the discovery, prioritization, and remediation of endpoint vulnerabilities and misconfigurations. Threat and vulnerability management helps organizations discover them in real time, based on sensors, without agents or periodic scans. It prioritizes vulnerabilities based on the threat landscape, detections in your organization, sensitive information on devices, and business context. The result? It helps to profoundly reduce your overall exposure and to improve your security posture. The next prevention technology is attack surface reduction. That's coming up next. Attack surface reduction reduces the places where your organization is exposed to attacks without limiting users' productivity. To do this, it provides a rich collection of capabilities. For example, application control allows only trusted applications to run. Attack surface reduction rules help you to restrict certain behaviors in apps, files, or scripts. And network protection prevents any app from accessing dangerous locations based on their reputations. While threat and vulnerability management and attack surface reduction help to neutralize threats before they can impact your machines, our next generation antivirus can detect and block attacks before they can do any damage. Microsoft Defender Antivirus is the Defender for Endpoint next generation protection component that combines machine learning, big data analysis, in-depth threat research, and the Microsoft Cloud infrastructure to protect devices. It uses behavior monitoring, heuristics, and real-time threat protection to detect and block malicious file or fileless threats. Through the power of cloud, it detects and blocks new and emerging threats almost instantly. Next up, endpoint detection and response for finding threats that want to stay hidden. Defender for Endpoint continuously collects behaviors and attacker techniques on endpoints to identify and alert on suspicious or malicious activity. It provides security teams with the needed tools to visually investigate forensic evidence, quickly understand the scope of a breach, and take the necessary actions. For example, Defender for Endpoint offers powerful tools for threat hunting and responding to threats. Security teams can investigate 6 months of historical data across all their endpoints, write flexible queries, save them, and turn them into custom detections. The built-in sandbox allows security teams to submit suspicious files for deep inspection. It returns a full report that describes the file's capabilities. The next capability is automation. helping security teams to go from alert to remediation at scale. The artificial intelligence built into Microsoft Defender for Endpoint uses inspection algorithms and processes that an analyst would use to automatically investigate and remediate threats. No break, no vacation, just high-quality investigations and remediations 24/7. Automated investigation and remediation is a huge win for security teams. They can go from an alert to remediation in just minutes at full scale. It significantly reduces the alerts they have to go after and can focus on more sophisticated threats or high-value activities. Defender for Endpoint gives security teams the optics and tools they need, including automation, so they can handle most of what they encounter. For those times when they need a little help, they can rely on Microsoft Threat Experts. Next. Microsoft Threat Experts is our managed threat hunting service, and it has two components. First, targeted attack notifications provide special insights and analysis that help identify and respond to the most critical threats quickly and accurately. And the second is Experts on Demand. You can reach out to Microsoft Threat Experts, and they provide you with a technical consultation on relevant detections and adversaries. On its own, Microsoft Defender for Endpoint is a powerful endpoint security platform. The ability to integrate with other solutions by using our APIs takes it to a whole new level. You learn about that in the next segment. Microsoft Defender for Endpoint is an innovative security.
All right, so that's what I wanted to show about the core capabilities. So let me get back to the slide presentation here. So I think if you've been looking at the video, right? So they pretty much covered all these core capabilities which are mentioned here, right? And in this webinar series, we are planning to do at least 3 to 4 sessions, which is dedicated to Defender for Endpoint, and we'll be completely focusing upon each and every single capability that's listed here, right? So let's move on. So now, how has Microsoft, designed their Plan 1 and Plan 2, right? So when I say MDE Plan 1, so these are the core capabilities that you would get with MDE Plan 1. And when I say MDE Plan 2, you get all this. And in addition to that, you get all these other capabilities also, right? So if you look at MDE Plan 1, you get the attack surface reduction, the next gen protection, which is nothing but your anti-malware and antivirus, manual response actions, centralized management, security reports, APIs, and also support for other operating systems, right? And when you go to MDE Plan 2, of course, everything which is included here, plus a lot of other core capabilities. And I'm not going to spend my time reading through all this because we are going to spend a lot of time demoing all this for you. So in our session today, Samik is going to be demoing you the next-gen protection capabilities, manual response actions, centralized management, security reports, APIs, and also support for other operating systems. And as I said in the beginning, attack surface reduction in itself needs its own dedicated session. So we are planning to park this for the next session because we want to prepare the lab for this, make sure that we have generated everything that is needed for this so that then we can come and show it to you in action. Okay, so how does the licensing work for this, right? So if you're interested in Microsoft Defender for Endpoint Plan 1, you get this with your Microsoft 365 E3 or A3 or G3 subscription. And it is also available as a standalone plan, right? So for whatever reason, if you're not using this SKU, and there are so many other Microsoft SKU licensing SKUs that you know, right? You can also go ahead and purchase this as a standalone plan. I don't remember the pricing for the standalone plan off the top of my head because this changes. What you see on the website is not the price because, of course, you would be working with your licensing partner, and there is a different pricing that they would give to you with a proper discount and stuff, right? But just bear in mind that it is included in E3, A3, or J3 and G3, and it is also available as a standalone plan. So when it comes to MDE Plan 2, these are the different licensing SKUs that gives you the Plan 2 capability, and it is also available as a standalone plan. Yeah, and this is clearly documented in the Microsoft's Learn site. You can just go there and read it for yourself. Now, I just want to quickly touch base on all these, I think we are going to talk about 5 core capabilities today. The first one, which is next gen protection. So when I say next gen protection, It's simply nothing but the antivirus, the Microsoft Defender antivirus, which is part of your Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, right? And this is not the regular antivirus. This is something which is always up to date, which is something which, as you saw in the video, right? It involves machine learning, it involves AI, it also collects the data from Microsoft 365. So a lot of work goes into this. So, and this is one of the highly ranked antivirus software out there. And this is part of your Windows operating system. This is not one of those antivirus that you need to go and purchase separately. I think at least from Windows 10 onwards or Windows 8 onwards, if my memory serves me well, Microsoft started making Microsoft Defender as a part of their operating systems. So we'll be showing a demo on how that works. The next is manual response actions. As the name itself says, if an attack happens, right? If there is some sort of a threat in the device, then what is the action that you need to take? And what are those manual actions that you can take, right? For instance, if the device has some sort of virus in it, then how you can go ahead and run an antivirus scan just within a single click, right? Or if you want to, or if the device is found having some malicious file on it, because of course in corporates you would know if your device is infected, the first thing they would say is do not connect your device to the network, just bring it directly to the IT, right? But those are good old days, right? With the current world that we are living in, that's simply not possible, right? So then we can understand how just within a click you can isolate a device from the corporate network, do the scan, and then bring it back into the network. And also if there is a file which has been infected, or if you want to prevent some files from running in the operating system, how you can do that. So this is what you mean by manual response actions. But as I said, these are manual. This is something which a security admin or a defender for endpoint admin can go to the console, locate that particular device, and within a click he can do these actions. The next is the centralized management. When I say centralized management, with the MD plan one, you would get access to go ahead and completely have access to the Microsoft Defender for Endpoint portal, wherein there are different places which you need to go through to do different stuff. So Samik would be walking you through all those different, let's say, nodes or different settings or different options that you need to be focusing upon when you're dealing with Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. Then reports, of course, similar to any other Microsoft Defender product, there are a lot of reports that are available for you. So one is the homepage, wherein you have multiple cards in the homepage, wherein you can see, for instance, what are the devices which are at risk in your environment, right? And what are the users who are at risk, and also the different incidents and alert sections can be seen there, and also the action center, what actions you have taken on a particular device, all those will be captured. And also there are some more meaningful reports. So in an enterprise, of course, a lot of these reports are needed. You would be sharing this with the security team, or for whatever reasons, right? You need these reports. So all this is possible. So we'll be talking about the report section also. And then the APIs, right? Because today for anything that you see there, you would be interested upon knowing whether there is an API for that, so that you can do some sort of automation, or if at all you want to integrate that with a different product which is there in your company, you can go ahead and do that. So MDE has its APIs also. There are different set of APIs. The way Microsoft has grouped it is you have investigation APIs, response APIs, streaming APIs, SIM, which is used for SIM, and all the different entity APIs. And we'll be walking you through these different API options also. So finally, what I want to say is your Defender for Endpoint is not a solution which is only meant to take care of Microsoft operating systems, which is Windows. It's not just meant for that. It can also take care of Mac OS, iOS, Android, and I think Linux is also there. Yeah, Linux is, it can also take care of Linux, but we haven't explored anything outside of Windows. But maybe it would be a good chance if at all you want to play around with a different operating system and see how it works. And the good part here is to note that it also supports Windows 7, right? Just that you need to have the extended security update. So that is something which is mandatory if at all you want your Microsoft Defender for Endpoint to talk to Windows 7. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Samik to demo all these capabilities. So Samik, over to you.
Thank you, Vignesh, and hello everyone. I would like to share my screen right now, and if you could give me a thumbs up once you see my screen.
Yeah, you're
All
good to
right.
go.
All right. Thank you for the confirmation. So fundamentally, we would definitely start with, as usual, our demos, which is security.microsoft.com, and Let me start with home. So this is one-stop shop for entire Defender XDR suite, as we have been talking about, and you've seen this portal, really in the past couple of times. And today, when you get started with Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, we have to start with a specific section, right? Then once we do that, for that we need to go ahead and just scroll down, and we would start with devices under assets. And as you can see, starting with the very first thing, it also provides us a device inventory. As you can see right now, there are two servers which we have already onboarded in the environment, and that's where you can see both the machines. And this also gives a high level details around the system, what is being kind of onboarded here. And if I go one by one, it's going to show me all the status, right? And there is a very specific feature called tags, which you can edit and put it for each specific machine. It's a server, or it's like, you know, uh, it it is a part of some domain or things like that, which will be used later for device groups. But for now, this is how it looks like. And once we click on or select on any of the devices, it is going to show a lot of information. And once you show it, it's fundamentally gives all the fundamental details around the system, starting about where the system belongs to, specific hardware details around that. Let me quickly scroll to the top. And it also shows if you have executed some sort of actions or manual remediations, which we'll be talking about in a moment, right? So let me just slowly scroll down and demonstrate you. Uh, it also talks about what is the first time it was seen, what is the current status, what is the device ID, right? And obviously it is showing invalid user. The reason here is it is not a part of the current domain. It is actually present in a cross Azure subscription. That means we can technically onboard any devices to MDE, either that's a part of domain or not, right? And then we go to policies, we look at last sync settings and things like that, right? And overall, it also talks about if I click on the device, it's gonna take us to a page which is very specific to that particular device. And if I look at the URL, the pattern is like it's gonna show slash machine slash v2 slash the GUID of the machine, right? And if we are using cross tenant, it's always gonna show the tenant ID right now. And if you take out the tenant ID, it's gonna go back to the default tenant, right? Now coming back to this device page, as you have seen earlier, it gives an overview, right? Then if there are certain incidents or alerts associated that particular machine, right? By default last 1 week, and let me take out the filters, right? So this is going to show out any incidents or alerts available. For example, we generated a test alert here, right? That's what is a part of this. The next thing it's going to show that if I go to timeline, right? It's going to also show a timeline, and the way it picks up it, as we mentioned, as Vignesh mentioned earlier, right? We install or onboard the machine into Defender, and that start collecting the whole telemetry from the system itself, either be it like a registry event, it's a device process event, it's a file creation event, and things like that, right? So entire telemetry is captured and ingested into Defender, and that's how we're going to see the timeline over here. So for example, if we are like doing some threat hunting and troubleshooting, after a look at an incident, we can always come to the timeline and look at exactly what's going to show up here, and what's the timeline looks like, right? Then the next piece is security recommendation, which is again, it's an overview or high level update of what it gives, right? And if I go to inventories, it's going to tell me like what are the things available within that particular machine, right? And also certain weakness and stores and things like that. Then because it's part of Defender, and it's also have TVM, threat and vulnerability management available, it's going to show the available or exposed CVEs for that machine over here. And obviously the list of missing KVs over here, right? If we want to update. So this is like a one-stop shop for the entire machine which is onboarded to Defender. And obviously you can have advanced feature and security policies. right? Now, having said that, this is whatever we have seen. If I go back to device inventory, that basically going to show us a list of devices over here. And as a next step, what I'm going to look at how we can onboard a new machine over here, and what is the entire process for that. So for that, what you're going to do is we're going to scroll down to the bottom, go to settings in the left navigation, and once we arrive at settings, we at least have to have Defender P1 license so that the endpoint is visible. And also for the first time, it takes a while once we log into the tenant, the provision tenant. So you can expect a little delay for this to appear. But once it appears, let's click on that. And again, in the left hand side, we scroll all the way bottom and come to onboarding under device management, right? So when you get to device management, as Bignesh was talking about, right, there are a couple of ways, or there are a couple of options Defender provides, that how you can onboard an endpoint. Now, if I click on the drop down here, obviously starting from, as you see, Windows Service Pack 1, 8.1, and it supports all the way till Windows Server 2012, sorry, 2022. So all those things can be selected. And obviously, if you want to go cross-platform, you can select Mac, you can select Linux Server, depending on what kind of environment you have or what kind of machines you have. All those things available here. So let me first, I have selected Windows 10, 11, and once I select Windows 10, 11, let the connectivity be streamlined, which I'm not going to change, so that it continuously kind of goes and checks in data over here, right? Then the next part is deployment method. Now, how do we deploy? Now, as today is the first session for MDE, right? We're gonna pick up the local script deployment, which is actually recommended by Microsoft if you are getting started, or you have a very fewer devices wherein you can log into manually every device and then download stuff and then manually onboard them. Otherwise, if you're running an enterprise setup, right, you can always go for group policy, endpoint, Intune, and any other software distribution method you have available, right? So for now, what I'm going to do is local script, right, and click on download package. So if I do that, right, it's gonna, as you see, it's gonna download a particular package over here. And I have get it downloaded in my local machine. And let me just try to do that. I'll copy that piece and let me just minimize it. I have just already done it, but just for you to understand, I will paste that downloaded piece into one of the new Windows 11 PC. As you can see, this is one of the Windows 11 PC, right? And once it's actually copied, technically inside it, it'll have a batch script over here, right? Let me extract it here. And it has an onboarding script. So before I run the script, right, I've already opened a similar script in the notepad so that I can show that to you. So technically what it does, it's a batch file. As you can see by the extension, it does and changes certain things in the registry, starts Microsoft Advanced Threat Protection, and does a lot of other registry changes, and make sure that it is running with the right permissions, and technically it installed the sensor, right? And as you can see, all the registry keys are updated here, and that's what the thing is. So with what I'm going to do next is click on that, right click on that, and run as administrator. So this is a good step to do because by default it might not have admin access. So obviously when you do it through group policies or Intune, right, we definitely put it with admin privileges so that it can install the right way. So all I'm going to do is hit Y, and you can see testing admin privileges. It's also make sure that it is run with admin privileges. It is starting the service, so it is starting the Defender service in the machine, right? And it's going to take like a minute or two to get the complete execution, and it says it's successfully onboarded, right? So press any key to continue. If I press it, it's gone. So that means what exactly happened, it got installed. And let's check if we have Defender here. As you can see, Defender is coming back here. And if I open it here, we can see all the details around. As Bignesh said, it is not only antivirus, it's also connected to the cloud, wherein every time it gets a real-time virus definition updates, and does behavioral analysis and things like that. And this is what is a part of advanced protection, right? Now, if we are starting something with MDE, right? So first time as an admin or as an IT pro person, we might not be really satisfied. Okay, we ran a script. How do we check it? It really executed, right? So for that, we obviously going to go back and check in the devices in the left navigation. But before that, we also going to make sure that, is it really capturing or is it really protecting the environment? So for that, Microsoft has actually given detection test script. As you can see, it's opening a PowerShell script and then running sort of some that trying to download some sort of invoice.exe, which is a malicious process. So I would copy it here and come to the VM. I think I came to the wrong VM. Let me get that and get to the correct Win11 VM. And I would go and search for command prompt. And let's try to run the command from for administrator. And I'd say Control B. So as you see, I pasted whatever we have copied from Defender portal and hit enter. Right? It just gone away. That means it executed. And the results gonna show up in just a moment. So to check that, right? What do you do is go back in the left navigation and go back to the assets and devices. So hopefully it doesn't take generally much time, but if it is not, as you see, right, VM Win11 webinar. So that's the one which we just onboarded, and you can see how quickly it can came in, because when you are here for the first time, that PC was not onboarded. So right now it is still not completely onboarded. It is kind of checking the exposure level and risk level, but we have the fundamental details and the sensor health and the onboarding status and things like that. And obviously the other things. So if I just click on that particular machine, it's going to show up the device details as like whatever we have shown you in one of the existing ones, right? And what happens is it captures all the details starting from IP address and starting for device ID and things like that. And we can go to other tabs to look at things like that. Now, we also ran a test script, right? So for that to see, we're going to go to incident in the left navigation, right? And then I think it's going to take a little while for the alert to pop up. But as you can see, right, like in the past, we have just created one of the existing incidents, right, which is going to make sure that, okay, the test is successful or the things are working, right? Now, just to go a little further, for example, we as a security person come here, look at the alert, assuming that this is a real alert, we get some hint that okay, there might be some issue. And as Vignesh was talking about, right, in the past, if anything happened to our machines, IT used to say that don't touch it, don't do anything, bring it to IT, right? So that might not be the case with the remote work and stuff like that. So Defender gives way more benefits beyond that, and there are certain things what we call as manual action or remediation action which can be taken as a part of it. Now for that, I will again in the left navigation go back to devices, and in the devices, what we should do is, let me pick that device, right? If I click on the device, I am on the device page, right? And on the right hand side top, right, I click on the ellipsis, and you can see there is a whole lot of activity or action I can set. I can set it as a critical device. I can tag it like it's a client machine or things like that. I can report that whatever things it's collecting is not accurate. I can definitely run an antivirus scan. I can restrict a app execution, right? And obviously there are a lot of other things. You can initiate a live response session so that it automatically responds and start doing live response one after another to make sure that the incident came in right, the right things are checked to do kind of a threat hunting there. And what you're going to do right now is, let me go back to the device and show up the device. As you can see, the device is kind of remote desktop from my machine, right? And I'm going to minimize that and hit on isolate device. So I would say assuming threat, so that it doesn't, it is not accessible by the network, nobody else. Or if there is really anything malicious, depending on the incident we have picked up, it will not spread across, right? The lateral movement will be blocked over here after the isolation. Now, while you do that, right, we can also make sure that will you allow that Outlook at Teams and Skype should be accessible. That means the person who is sitting on the terminal, right? Will that person be able to access all these things or not? That's kind of, because those are secure Microsoft apps, and it's very difficult to do something wrong through those apps, right? That's why there's a checkbox. And right now I don't want to do that, and I'm going to hit confirm. Right. So once you hit confirm, as you see, it actually went and submitted in Action Center. And then if you want to know more about Action Center, which we have spoken in one of our previous videos, and it says isolation pending, right? We can still cancel that, and it's going to take a while, right? Let me go back and click on that. As you can see the behavior, right? It is right now isolated. And what happened? The RDP I connected to the machine, right? That just gone, right? So I'm not going to kind of close that RDP. I'm going to click out as it is. But as you can see, I cannot access the machine. So let me minimize it. Let me close it. And again, click on the three dots again. We isolated the device, right? So I think, let me give me 1 sec. Isolate device is grayed out, right? And I think there should be, or I might need to go back and come back just to check, just to give it a refresh, right? Let me click on the machine again, just to make sure it's refreshing. Again, on the right hand side, click on the three dots, and I'm gonna come from that. And I should, just after the isolation is done, right? Uh, I would say release from isolation. So it basically takes a while so that isolation completes and things like that. But I should be able to unisolate the machine once again, right? So that's how we can actually control the machine. And once I am able to do that, let me, just for the simplicity's sake, I'm gonna refresh the page again, see if it gives me that option. So again, it's refreshed. I'm gonna go to devices and click on that VM again. Sorry, I clicked on the wrong VM. So we're gonna click on the Windows 11 VM and let the right side appear. As you see here, right, it's completed. So it is asking that, can I release it from isolation? I'm going to hit that. And no threat found. Let's say, I mean, this is just a comment. So for reference, and I'm going to confirm that. The moment I did that, right, like the previous one, it went to Action Center and then queued action to unisolate the device. And to look at the behavior, I'm going to click on that, and you can see that pane is gone and the machine is back, right? So you can see how intuitive it is. I didn't even need to close the RDP. I kept the RDP connection alive. It just disconnected out of the network and put it in the isolation mode the moment I isolated. And the moment we kind of, remove the isolation, again, the same connection was revived. I don't even need to kind of RDP again. So that's the real beauty of things. Coming to other actions, there are a couple of other steps also we can do. For example, as I was talking about, we can restrict apps execution so that only apps either from Microsoft Store or Microsoft apps are kind of allowed. You cannot allow, or you cannot run a third-party app, for example, Notepad++ or things like that, right? You can initiate, as I mentioned, automated response and automated live response session, and you can exclude things. You can go and do on hunting and things like that. And you can download a force release from isolation script, because for example, at times what happens, due to certain reasons, you may not be able to you may not be able to unisolate the devices. That's why you can download the script and then locally run the script to unisolate the device, and bring it back to the Defender console again. Now, having said that, whatever we did, this really is it's a good thing to see, right? But what about APIs? Because if we need to do it at scale, or if we need to do it from some other system, for example, like from a scene and things like that, right? So there are APIs available for that, and we can break the APIs in really different parts. Now, first thing, let me go back to the settings to understand the APIs more. If I go to settings and go to Defender as a whole itself, Microsoft Defender XDR, and Go to streaming API. So streaming API is one of the options. There are two ways to see it here. We can actually stream everything. There is a built-in API provided by Microsoft, wherein either we can stream all the events, whatever data we see in Defender, either to Azure storage account or to Event Hub, and then we can take it further, right? And within that, when we even do that, right, we can define like within emails, what are the things we're gonna see right now. Today's topic is device, so I'll stick to device. And as you can see, we can even fine tune, right? For example, if we want to store only device network info or device file events or any other device events to a storage account or to a event hub, right? Same thing is available for a SIEM. So we can go and configure Microsoft Sentinel and then do a connection to this, which will also create a cross connection to pull the data through the streaming APIs, right? And you can see the connections here. Now that's one way of doing it. And second thing is you can create an app registration wherein you can call all those isolate machines on isolate machines and get advanced hunting and things like that, right? And Microsoft has also given a intuitive UI to look around some of the APIs and test it across. For that, let me go back and go to endpoints, expand partners and APIs. Let's go to API Explorer here. And you can see there are some sample things over here available. Let's say if I want to create an alert, if I want to update an alert, or maybe we're gonna see top 10 vulnerabilities. The moment I clicked on that, you see the API got changed, and the API formation is really straightforward. API happened US3 and securitycenter.microsoft.com vulnerabilities. So these are standard REST APIs. I'm going to run that, right? So once we run that, depending on it's going to get certain vulnerabilities over here, and I'll just make it a little bigger, and you can see the REST response. So fundamentally, to make it kind of actually working, we can have app registration and enter ID and then connect with this with the right permissions, and we can talk to each other, right? Let's take another example of device tag, maybe, or I would say I don't want to add a tag, or maybe I'll tag client, right? And run the query. It's not only get, obviously, there is no machine I mentioned, so that's why it failed, but you can technically add that as well, right? And let me get all the isolation action. So it is querying isolation center, and I'm going to see all these isolation. There's nothing pending right now, that's why I don't see it. But fundamentally, these are the console wherein you can try and write queries and things like that and look at things. So as you see, I ran an advanced hunting query wherein I'm talking about give me the device process events which is coming from PowerShell exe and give the fundamental metadata out of it. And if we look at the response, it shows that when it executed, how much CPU it took, and the entire data set statistics, the schema, and results and things like that, right? So this is, again, if you want to try out the APIs, this is the console you should do it, right? So coming back to the devices again, where we started, um, we talked about centralized management. We looked at the advanced protection within the device. We looked at what kind of detailed information for each device is available once it is onboarded. And I also looked at the entire onboarding process live. Then we also talked about APIs. Now, let's talk about some dashboarding and some reporting, what you get out of these machines once onboarded. So for that, I would use the left navigation, come to report sections, and click on reports. Then within the report, obviously, this is broken down in different aspect to make sure that we trying to understand each aspects over here. So let's go to device health, and as you can see, there's a little description which talks about what kind of data it provides. So device health, antivirus software, update versions, operating system, and things like that. So I'd go to device health. Once I click on that, you see by default it goes to sensor and OS, right? And as we're talking about, right, as you can see, there is a spike since yesterday, right? So we started onboarding this week itself, or I'd say last week, and say how many are active. So all active devices, there's nothing wrong here. Look at the device types. So mostly Windows Server and things like that. And that's about the fundamental details. And if I go to second tab over here, Microsoft Defender Antivirus Health, right? Zero devices don't have antivirus active. That means everything is active, right? So two devices active, and Windows versions and things like that. One device is out of date, one devices are out of date, and things like that. So these are one of the reports, and these are available by default. So we don't need to do anything else around that. If I want to do something which you're going to show like ASR or device control, we can always do that. We can look at monthly security summary. So because our environment is pretty new, we might not have much data, but obviously it's going to show up some data to look at what is the monthly summary looks like, right? So those are the things can be definitely leveraged, you know, within Defender reports itself, specific to Defender for Endpoint. Now, the next piece we'd like to talk about is permission. Now, why permission is very unique, as you see, and we have spoken a bit about this in the past as well. Defender portal has its own RBAC. That means to make sure to give, let's say you want to give access to one of the SOC analysts in Defender portal. It is not necessary at all that we have to go to enter ID, create a role, create a user, and assign and things like that, right? So if I go to the roles under endpoint roles, I'll click on that. By default, it's obviously turned off. So I have turned on that we want to manage our roles here. And if we try to add a new role over here, right, we can obviously specify a rule and we can go granular over here. Let's say if you look at security operations, who can view data, what are the things they can activate, like exception handling and things like that, alerts investigation, live response capabilities, and so on and so forth. So we can really go fine tune results and assign it to specific set of users so that they can do their responsibilities and jobs and don't do any mishap. Like for example, they should not do something, remove or unisolate and things like that. So with that said, that's the fundamental around permission. Now, there is another thing which is called device group. So if I go back to the settings, or maybe rather in the left navigation, I go back to the permission again. And in the permission, there is also something called device groups. So device groups are kind of, if we roughly try to calculate or compare its administrative units, right? And we can add a device group. And let's say it's a test device group, and I'll do some. I want it to be like fully remediated threats automatically. For example, we know these are kind of no-brainers. We just keep it turned on. Then go to the next, and then this is the fun part that we can obviously put some filters over here. And one of the filters are tag, as we talked about. So if I say equals, and if I say server, right, because that's one of the tag we have already created. We don't have any other filters. And let me, it's obviously goes shows up top 10 devices, but as you can see here, right, that it is fundamentally showing the devices as well if we tag is applied right away. So device group is another way of managing your devices in the right way, and you can tag it anytime. Let's say you are enrolling a software, you tag your things accordingly. Let's say you have Linux, or you have two different options in servers itself, you can tag them accordingly. So tagging can be used in multiple device tags, and accordingly we can create a device group and take actions as well, right? So with that said, let me cancel it for now. With that said, I will again go back to the devices, and I think, as you can see, all the things. And right now, if you look at initially when you onboarded, it was the risk level was not available here, but it is medium right now because it's all the MD sensor has already started working and it is capturing more and more data, right? So that's about the device inventory. And if I also go back and try to look at incidents, and I'll let it load for a moment. And as you see here, right, we just tested something. So execution incident on one endpoint, that's the one. And you can see who is the one. This is the machine we used. This is the category. This is the user who ran it. And it is coming from an EDR, like endpoint detection and response source. And the still active, it is not resolved here, right? So with that said, I'll give it back to Vignesh.
All right. Thanks, Samik. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen back.
Yeah.
All right, folks. So that's the demo that we wanted to show for today. So I'm pretty sure you are able to visualize a lot of these plan one capabilities that we spoke about. But as I said, the attack surface reduction is something which we are planning for the next session because we've got to onboard the devices using Microsoft Intune, the Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, because there's a lot that we want to show there and how you can configure certain policies, certain rules, and it's a lot which goes into that. Right? Just we are almost at the end of our session, but just quickly, something which I just want to show to you folks is because this very portal that you're seeing here, this has gone through a lot of changes and transformation, and it's humanly impossible for anyone to keep up with it, right? I mean, I don't know why Microsoft keeps doing this, but it is what it is, right? So just I want to make I want to make sure that everybody feels comfortable with this portal. So you come here, the home is the one which gives you a quick glance of everything that is happening in your tenant, right? So these are all different cards. You can move them around if you want, or if you want to go ahead and delete this, or if you want to bring in a different card, you can go ahead and do it. Now, if you have RBAC right now, maybe you just have been given the Microsoft Defender for Endpoint access. Maybe that's the job that you've been taking care in your organization, right? Then you can bring in only those relevant cards because you're simply not bothered about what's happening with Microsoft Defender for cloud apps or something of that. So you can just go ahead and rearrange these cards based upon what works best for you. And you also have an option here which says add cards. If I keep scrolling down, you would see a lot of information, right? So the users at risk. Now, this is just a demo environment, so we just onboarded 2 or 3 devices, which is why you barely see anything. But in a real production environment, that is a lot. Within a few minutes of you turning on Defender and started onboarding devices, you would see a lot of information which would start popping up. So I just want to make sure that you get comfortable with this. And the way Microsoft has categorized this is also something which I want to quickly talk about. So when I say Microsoft Defender for Office 365, this option, which comes under email and collaboration, these are all the different nodes which cater to Microsoft Defender for Office 365, meaning any kind of configuration, settings, changes, anything that you want to do with respect to Microsoft Defender for Office 365, you would come and do it here. Similar, if you're Defender for Endpoint, you would come here and start. You want to Defender for Endpoint is here, and also the assets devices. We'll be focusing a lot on this in the upcoming sessions, but you can see under assets devices, you can go ahead and look at it. When I say identities, this is Microsoft Defender for identities. So anything to do with that comes here. And Microsoft Defender for cloud apps is this option. And the settings is the place wherein you can go and click and you and the onboarding process. I mean, to be honest, it's not the real best experience. Microsoft could have done a better job in designing this portal, but this is what it is at this point, and I'm pretty sure there is a lot of changes which is going to come, which is going to happen because it wasn't even this granular few months back, right? We didn't even get these many options. A lot of these things were interconnected. It was quite confusing for anybody to come and understand where do I click for Defender for Endpoint, where do I click for Defender for Office 365. But now Microsoft has done a much more better job, and I think they'll do a lot of investments here to keep this portal really clean and neat. So with that, I just want to share some more information. So we saw the demo. So these are all the useful links which I want you all to go through. So if at all you're following along with us, you want to create a lab, you want to create a demo, just go ahead. And if you're planning to do MDE Plan 1, then Microsoft 365 E3 is the one. If you're planning to do Plan 1 as well as Plan 2, then Microsoft 365. I would say go ahead and take a 30 days trial of Microsoft 365 E5. And then you can, and also take an Azure subscription with the free credits. Let's say whatever gives you $150, spin up some couple of VMs there, create a demo, create a domain controller and a client setup there. You can onboard the machines. Of course, in the next sessions, we are going to show you all that, but please make sure that you have a proper setup there so that you can follow along with all the demos that we are doing. So with that, thanks a lot, folks. Thank you so much for joining our session today. And our next session would be getting started with Microsoft Defender for Endpoint Part 2, where we are going to focus a lot on attack surface reduction, which is once again Plan 1. I mean, there are certain parts of it which are part of Plan 1, then there are certain parts of attack surface reduction which are part of Plan 2, but then please do keep an eye on the meetup group for an invite for the next session. We are planning to do that on 15th June at 6 p.m. IST. So with that, if at all you have any questions, now would be the time to unmute, or if you want to put it in the chat, you can go ahead and do that as well. And it will be really great if you can scan this QR code and give us your feedback. And if at all you want to ask any further questions, feel free to do that as well. Thanks a lot, folks. You've been wonderful audiences, and now we are open to take questions.
Hi, Vignesh, Samik. Thank you very much. It was a wonderful session. I have two quick questions here. One is about the script that you ran to create a false alert on the system. Was